In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing how to make a HUD. So that's a heads-up display. So I'll be showing a score counter and a health bar. So the first thing we need to do is create the user interface for that health bar and score system. So widget blueprint, create one of them. Select user widget, and I'm going to call this UI underscore HUD. So if we open that up, just like what we've done in previous videos, we're going to drag in a canvas panel. We're going to drag in a text block. So this is going to be the score system, and then a progress bar. That's going to be the health bar. So in some cases, having these separate, so having these as separate UI elements and then dragging them in as a child UI can be useful. But just for basic purposes, this is perfectly fine. So what we need to do is we need to rename the progress bar. So this is just so when we go into code and we start to affect the percentage that is filled out, we have a name that's easily memorable. So I'm going to call this health bar. And then for the text block, that's by default not a variable. So again, we need to set this to a variable so it can be referenced in code, and then call it something that's memorable. So I'm going to call this score count. And then what we would need to do is, first of all, set the percent on the health bar. So select the health bar. On the right, you can see percent. So I'll set that to 1. So the progress bar goes from 0 to 1. So later on when we go into code, there's a bit of maths that we need to do. Also, you can change the colour of this progress bar to anything that you'd like. So I'm going to put this as red, full red. You could put it as green, blue, anything that you want. Anything on this wheel you can have, but I'm going to put it as red for health. I'm also going to change this text block to something default. So I'm going to call it 0 because that's going to be the starting score, 0, and then when you start picking things up, it increases one by one. So this is the UI setup for our needs. So we've got a health bar, that's a variable, and we've got a score count, that's also a variable. So what we need to do now is compile and save that. Make sure to compile. If you don't compile it, if you try to reference it in code in the character blueprint, which is what we're going to do, it will come up with an error. So make sure to compile before you close this down. Now what we need to do is go to the player's blueprint, so mine's third person character, open that up. There's already some code that I've got from previous stuff, but what I'm going to do is take that off for now and just show you how to add the HUD UI again. So it's using this, so in previous videos it goes through this, but I'm going to do it again. So drag off begin play, do create widget, and then from this, select class, select the new one that we just made, UI HUD, drag backwards off owning player and do player controller, and that will get the player controller that it needs to reference. And then we need to make a variable called HUDref, so drag off it, promote to variable, HUDref, and then drag off this and do add to viewport. So now this is going to be showing up in game, so I'll show you that now. So we've got the score system, the text, and the health bar there. So we've got the text here and the health bar there. So that's showing up in game. Oh, this is showing up some. Right, cool. So now what we need to do is add some code to have it where when you. So what we're going to do is what's called debugging. So we're going to have it where when you press a button, it either increases the score or damages your health. So I'm going to have keyboard, and then let's just do numbers. So when I press 1, it increases score, and when I press 2, it will damage the health. So what we'll do now is we already have a score variable. This is from a previous tutorial. This is the pickup tutorial. But all you need to do is press this plus on the variables, name it whatever you need, and change it to an integer. So we need to change it to an integer, otherwise we can get like 1.0001 of a score, which obviously wouldn't make sense. Unless it's like a time trial, then you would need something like a float. But for the purposes of it's a pickup and it's going to increase the score by 1, we'd want it as an integer. So what we need to do here is get score and then do plus plus, and then this will increase it by 1. I'm going to be showing how to do this through the pickup, but it's pretty much the same code. So when you press 1, it increases the score, but then we need to have it update the UI. So this won't update the UI by default. So what we need to do is get the HUD ref, so drag the HUD ref in and do a get, and then we need to get the score count. So if you get score count, this is why we need a memorable name. So once we've got the score count, we can then set text, and it's the set text in brackets text, so it should be the bottom one if you search set text. So set text in brackets text, link that up, and then in the in text, do that. So set text to integer, to text here, and it'll convert the integer number to a text, and then it'll update the UI. So if I show you that, so you can see as I'm pressing 1, it's increasing the score. What we also want to do is have the health bar reduce as we get damaged. So there's a few things we need to do. We need to set up a health variable. So first of all, call that health, but we also want this as an integer. So again, if you're playing a game and you're getting damaged, and then what's called a floating point error occurs, you could be there with 0.00001 health, which you'll have basically nothing on your health bar. You should be dead, but you're not. So an integer stops that from happening. So I'm going to make this variable. I'm going to compile at the top, and then on the right, with the health variable selected, I can change the default value. So I'm going to say the health is 100 just for ease. You can set this to whatever you want, and the maths that I'm going to show you will work. I'll explain how it works though. So what we need to do, when we press 2, get the health and decrease it by a number. So you can do minus minus, and then it'll do decrement int. This will decrease it by 1. But if you're wanting to have it where you have different enemies doing different types of damage, so the way we do that is we get the health and then set health. So we're going to set the health to something. So we need to get whatever the health currently is. So it's currently 100, but if you get damaged a little bit, it might be 80. And then minus, subtract. So what we're going to do is whatever the health currently is, minus, let's say, 10 from that, and then set that to the new health value. So then from this, we can have different enemies doing different amounts of damage, all that kind of thing. So this might be a more better way rather than just doing a minus minus and reducing the health by 1. Then what we need to do is we need to set the percentage of this health bar to match the health. But as we know, the percent of the health bar only goes from 0 to 1. So we need to do some maths to work out when it's 1, when it's 0.5, when it's 0.75, all that kind of thing. This is where a little bit of maths comes in. So if we get the HUD ref, and then we get a reference to the health bar, and then drag off that and do set percent. This is then going to set the bar's percent from 0 to 1, however we do it. Now, if we just drag this in here, it'll convert that, but what it'll do is it'll be 99, so it'll just set it by default to 1. So it will always be full health until you get to 0, then it'll snap to 0. What we also cannot do is, well, actually, I'll go through the proper method. So what you need to do is in percent, drag backwards, and then do divide. So maybe search divide. Yeah. So what we're needed to do is a bit of maths to work out when it's full health, so 1, when it's 0.5, but the thing with integer is that it can only do whole numbers. So we can't ever have, it will only ever be 1 or 0 at this point. So the way we need to do it is we could drag this, but then it converts it to an integer, and then if we put a number, it should bring up an error. So I'll show you, because in previous times it has brought up an error. So I'll show you the foolproof way to do it. So we need to drag off this and do to float, and then drag that up to the top one, and then have the bottom number of the divide as the maximum health you have. So the way that that works is if I bring up a calculator, if I do 100 divided by 100, that's 1. And then if we're half health, so 50 health divided by 100, that's 0.5. If your health is something custom, so let's say your health is 78, for example. If we've got quite a bit of damage, so 31 divided by 78, we still get a decimal point percent. Okay, so it doesn't matter too much of your health. I've done 100, so it's easier, and usually games go with 100 or something like that. But if you've got a custom health variable, or if you have a game where you can dynamically change your health, setting up a variable and just making sure that this bottom reference, so the 100, references whatever the maximum health currently is, you will get an accurate progress bar. So if I minimize this, press play, and press 2, yeah, so because I've done it as 10 damage, it's reducing it by 10% every time I press 2. So you can see just behind there, it's going down. So this is where when the health gets to 0, you do all the death stuff, but I won't be covering it in this tutorial. So another thing that I'm going to show you quickly is how to set this up in a pickup. So I believe I already have a pickup tutorial. There we are. So pickup tutorial, drag this in. So I'm going to set up a few pickups here. So if I go into the pickup code, what we're going to do is essentially recreate this, but through the player reference that we get. So this player reference here. So what we need to do is drag this over here. Actually, drag this over there. So we already have it where it increases the score, but then we need to have it where it updates the UI as well. So the way we do that is just do HUD ref, because it's communicating with the player blueprint is this cast. So it's going through the player's blueprint, so we can get a reference to whatever variables we have in the player. So we have a HUD ref, so we can reference that. And then we're going to copy the score count. So drag off that, score count. Oh, not set score count. Score count, get score count. And then we're going to set text. Oh, set text, and then brackets text. And then just have this go through this first. Have that set up so it's almost identical to this one here, but it's just got it's going through a cast instead. So then if I go into here, I pick up all these and it increases it by 6 because that's how the code was set up, but it still updated it and everything like that. So that's how you make a very basic HUD of a health bar and a score counter.